Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. How are you? Guys, I trust you are well. Good to see you. Those who are here, we are recording. Guys, you've got two goals for today's session. This will be the last class that we have before the break. Just let's clear up a couple of things quickly. I'm just going to put up a screen in terms of the program. Okay. Okay, so guys, let's put this up over here quickly. It is on Blackboard in case someone says you haven't seen it. This is the undergraduate action plan for the faculty. So in terms of, guys, today we're going to finish topic 5 because we're going to look at the questions at the end of chapter 4. Chapter 4 is also then the chapter that your assignment is based on. So guys, if you look at in terms of the outline and what we're doing, when, etc. So we want to finish topic 5 this week, which is chapter 4. And if we look at the times of the teacher learning, all units up to 10 July. So basically classes go on to 10 July. Then assessments is for the next 3 weeks. Guys, your assignment, you will see I've changed the submission date to the 20th of July, Monday, 20 July. The 12th was a bit unreasonable. I don't know what I was thinking actually, because that actually works out to be a Sunday, but never mind. Okay, so guys, so you've got assessments. I assume you also have assignments for your other subjects that are due during this period. I also have to have everything marked by the 3rd of August. So it's quite a bit of pressure on me to get all the things marked. I'm still struggling. I've marked all your assignments. You'll notice I've given feedback. I've had some queries which I have addressed. So assignment 1, so assignment 2 will be due on the 20th of July, but this will be our last class for the semester. However, if we look at schedule for this group, guys, we've got another class scheduled for Wednesday. We got consultation on Wednesday afternoon, and Thursday afternoon we have a class scheduled. Both of those will, the Wednesday is obviously consultation, but the Thursday class will then also be for consultation and questions about the assignments and clarification, etc. So as I said, this will be the last class this term. So basically, then classes will resume again on the from the 17th of August. We still don't know what's going to be the situation going back to campus, etc. Guys, we're still playing that by ear in terms of departments. We will look closer to the time, but Cape Town hasn't spiked yet, and the country with the virus, etc., seems to be, it's not going so well in the country. 2 provinces, a number of the other provinces, Western Cape seems to be more or less under control, but we're still losing 35 to 40 people a day, which is problematic. But for example, Gauteng's death rate has spiked and infection rate has spiked, and the Eastern Cape's is also quite high. So we'll have to play it by ear and see what is viable, etc. So I don't know whether third term will be face-to-face. Let's hope it is face-to-face, but the other possibility is that the third term is also online. So we'll very much play things by ear in this regard. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay, that's just, guys, this online schedule is on Blackboard. I loaded it on the under your content on your subject, so you just need to check what's going on there, etc., and keep record of it. And I do realize, guys, that it is more difficult in these times. I feel sometimes like you think you're great to sit at home, etc., but it's, you know, so many deadlines, so much information and overload, etc. It makes the things more challenging. Just hold on 1 second. Stop being a pain in the ass. Yeah. Roxy? Roxy, yummy. What's up? Oh. Apologies. As I say, it's a bit of a challenge with being at home and things happening here as well, like my silly mutt who wants to scratch on the door to get out. Okay, so let's look at the exercise that you had for today's class, the questions in the portfolio. How would, question 1, the economic system affect an organization's intention to expand to a particular country? Okay, so what's the 3 economic systems that we have, guys? If you go back to the slides, and where's our economic systems? Over here. Okay, so our first economic system is a free market economy or capitalism, and basically you're free to conduct any business within a free market system. And the free market systems, guys, as you said, no system is absolutely free market or absolutely communist. They tend to have a mixture of different characteristics, but a free market system, basically a business would be free to operate in it. It's an issue about financial freedom, and the greater a country's financial freedom, in other words, the greater their free market system, the better it is for business to operate in that country, because the markets that are freer tend to be, the people in those countries tend to have or tend to be richer overall. And the point is, in a free market system, you are free to conduct any business that you like. There's no limitations placed on you by government whatsoever. Okay. The only thing that government there is they're there to control the freedom in order, for example, to enforce antitrust laws and preserve property rights, etc. So they're there to look after business within a free market system, and the market forces are meant to manage the markets as such. Okay, the second form, guys, is command economy or communism. Okay, what's a command economy? The state controls and owns everything. So the state decides how to produce, what to produce, for whom to produce. So basically, you could not do business within a communist system. You would not be welcome to do business in a communist country. So the state owns everything. There's no profit. There's no incentive to do business, etc. So a command economy, you are not welcome to do business within. It's closed to capitalist business, in other words, free market business. So it's the other extreme of a free market economy. Here the state controls everything, the state produces everything, and private business is not welcome. Okay. We also said the reality is most countries are mixed economy. What characterizes a mixed economy? The government owns certain sectors within the economy, and private business owns the rest. Okay, so here it would depend on what sort of business you are in. For example, South Africa is a mixed economy in the sense that most of our business is private. However, the government provides electricity, train services, our basic hospital services. So those are three. Okay, so it's interesting in South Africa that we have both public and private healthcare. But for example, South Africa, the government is promoting or proposing the National Healthcare Plan, or National Health, what's it called? Someone help me out. National Healthcare or National Health. Anyhow, but basically that may mean that private hospitals fall away completely within South Africa. So the point within a mixed economy is if your business is one that is not affected by government, you can open it freely, you can do business as within any capitalist economy. However, if you have a business which the government controls or the government provides, then you will not be welcome within that market. So for instance, you can't, private train company, private electricity companies, private, in South Africa, basic private train companies and private electricity companies are largely not welcome. So that limits certain businesses' ability or, the ability to operate within these countries. So guys, capitalist, anyone can open a business. Communist, no one can open a business. And in a mixed economy, most businesses can operate. Like in South Africa, even the government controls healthcare, but you've also got private healthcare, which, what's the word I'm looking for? Which basically builds up the public system, etc. So in a mixed economy, it will depend on the type of business you're in. Another good example is previously Telkom was government owned and no fixed line operators could operate in South Africa. And then they also controlled the market quite strongly. When the cell phone operators came in, only Vodacom and MTN were initially in the market, and then Cell C was in the market, and now it's opened up pretty much. But again, that's an example of government intervention that limited free market activity within the economy. Any questions about that? Okay. The second question is frame concept of gross domestic product. And guys, it's set up quite clearly within the slides. What is gross domestic product? Well, we've got per capita gross domestic product, which is the gross domestic product divided by the number of citizens in the country. But gross domestic product is the sum of all the economic activity that takes place within a particular country. And it gives us an indication basically of how rich the country is. So we said GDP is C plus I plus G plus X, which C is all the personal expenditure. So all the money that we spend on, we consume goods, services, etc. We buy stuff every time we swipe our credit card or buy something. Guys, so you go to a cafeteria on campus, your transaction there basically forms part of the C, which is a personal consumption within your GDP. So every time someone spends money, it's an indication of or it adds to the GDP. So basically, guys, the GDP tells us how much business is done within a country. So personal consumption, then investments, both by non-residential and residential, so people who live in the country and people who don't live in the country. Then government expenditures, because the government buys or builds hospitals, roads, it equips its army, its force, it buys personal PPEs, etc. Guys, one of the things when you come back to campus, you will be provided with PPEs. You'll receive masks and hand sanitizer when you come back to campus, whenever that may be. But who paid for that? Essentially, at the end of the day, it's government. Guys, it's paid for with taxpayers' money. Hello, who pay? If you're an NSFAS student, who's paying for your studies? Government is paying for your studies. Who's paying for all the data that you're using at the moment? Government is basically paying for it. Okay, then net exports is imports less exports. So you either have an export deficit or you have an export surplus, and we said it is better to have an export surplus. In other words, that you import more than you export. Sorry, import surplus. Sorry, that you export more than you import. Yes. So you want to do more business because we sell in dollars and we buy in dollars. In South Africa, we have an import deficit due to the large amount of oil that we import into the country, which creates problems for our export deficit, because we need more dollars than we gain from our imports. Is there a question? Am I just getting excited? Okay. But our gross domestic product, guys, basically tells us how rich the country is. We said it doesn't tell us. It tells us on average how rich the country is, but it doesn't really tell us how well income is dispersed or shared within a country. Generally, the higher GDP of a country, the better off the people are in the country, and the more attractive it is for foreign business to conduct business within that country. Okay. The question was MAC index. Okay. How does South Africa measure up here? Okay. We did the whole thing. It's called Burgernomics, and it's an example of purchasing power parity, where we compare the purchasing power of two currencies with one another to buy the same goods. And the underlying assumption is that two goods that are exactly the same in two countries, for example, the Big Mac, which is McDonald's burger, is identical between countries, so it's got the same raw materials, they look the same all over the world, and it's one of the most consumed foods in the world. Not sure why, because I think it tastes like cardboard, but okay. So, guys, my GDP, if you go to it, not GDP, my Big Mac index, we use a Big Mac, guys, and the formula for Big Mac, first you PPP. So if I go over there, my PPP's formula, it's the same for the two. My PPP's formula is the rand value or rand cost, 31 rand divided by $5.50, which is a dollar cost, which means that my PPP for South Africa is 5.64. And then if we look at the current rand dollar exchange rate, what's the current rand dollar exchange rate? I assume you did some research. So I'm looking at the question over here. Okay, I'll get to that about the natural resources. Let's just finish the PPP one, and I'll chat to you about the natural resources. Okay. Okay, so my PPP is 563. Now, what's the formula, guys? It says whether currency is under or overvalued, it's the actual exchange rate. What's the current exchange rate of the rand dollar? I looked at 17 rand and 4 cents to $1. So if you want to buy $1, it will cost you 17 rand and 4 cents. Or if you swap it round, one South African rand is worth about 6 American cents. So actual exchange rate minus my PPP, which is 564. So then divided by, so if you look over there, and the actual exchange rate minus PPP, sorry, I'm not sure, it's cutting off the bottom of the screen. Let me just fix it up quickly. Let me just make it a little bit smaller. 20. Okay, let's just do it like that. Okay, it's visible now. Okay, so what's my formula, guys, for my Big Mac index? Is actual exchange rate. Let's just do it again, which is 17 rand and 4 cents minus my PPP, which is 5.64. So that will be 1140 divided by my PPP, which is 5.64 times 100 over 1. So, guys, basically, it says that the rand is 202% undervalued against the US dollar. If you want to understand how that works, guys, basically, if you take it, so my US guy, paying $5.50 for a Big Mac, he gets 17 rand and 4 cents for every dollar. Sorry, 5.5 times 17.04 equals, so he gets the price of one Big Mac in America, which is $5.50 over there. He gets 93 rand and 72 cents. And a Big Mac burger in South Africa is 31 rand. So he gets 3 Big Mac burgers for the price of one Big Mac burger in the United States. Alternatively, guys, I'm going to America, so I take my 31 rand, I divide it by 7.04, I get $1.82 for my 31 rand. My Big Mac burger is $5.50 divided by 1.32, so I get, what have I done wrong? $5.50 divided by 1.32. Basically, I get, why? Just let me do it this way. $5.50 divided by 132, and it goes in. So I get about 25%, so 1/4 of the Big Mac value. I get about 20% of a Big Mac in America for the price of one Big Mac in South Africa. So effectively, the Big Mac in America costs me 3 times the price that it does in South Africa. Okay. So guys, the point is, according to the Big Mac index, the South African rand is currently about 200% undervalued against the US dollar. So actually the rand should be if you divide it by 3, according to the Big Mac index, the rand should be about R6.30 to the American dollar, and then we would have the same exchange rate. Okay, there's a question here about, it doesn't relate directly to the questions that we're covering, but it's a good, so when it comes to countries that are rich in natural resources and things that other countries want, how is it possible that other countries that in essence have more leverage, but same countries are some of the poorest? The point is they don't actually have the leverage. Guys, the reality leverage comes in money. So the richest countries are able to largely determine the price of goods and services. But an example of where countries have exercised their leverage over raw materials is recently with Saudi Arabia and Russia. So the oil price, they didn't want, the world didn't want to, or they were having a little war over the oil price. And basically, if they limit their production, which they've now done, it pushes up the cost of oil dramatically. So you notice the price of petrol went up about R2 a litre the other day. That was largely due to the fact that the countries who are producing the majority of oil in the world, which is Saudi Arabia and Russia, basically cut back their production and forced up the price at the end of the day. But most countries rely on their raw material for income. So it's like saying, I've got a spaza shop. Everyone needs the stuff that I've got in the spaza shop. So I should be able to charge whatever I want to. But the reality is the market price, what people are prepared to pay for it, determines. And if I'm not rich, I can't hold on to the goods and services in my spaza shop. I pretty much have to sell them in order to get money in. And it's almost a similar thing. So with copper, with most raw materials in the world, the countries that are producing them are at a weaker position because they are poorer countries in the bigger scheme of things. So like, for example, America is rich, so you don't want to sell it, but also no one's got absolute advantage anymore. So you can produce, raw materials are produced by the majority of countries, or a number of countries in the world. But these countries also don't necessarily work together with one another in order to increase the prices, which would be to their advantage. But America, Europe, the more powerful countries work against things like that at the end of the day. But it would make sense, for example, OPEC, which is the organization of petroleum exporting countries, they get together and decide on oil quotas. So it would make sense, for example, if all the gold producing, all the diamond producing, and all the steel producing countries in the world, for example, got together and created a organization to limit the flow of their goods, thus to increase the prices, etc. But they don't do it. And that's also, guys, it's the same principle. People talk about, like, the Somali oaks come to South Africa, but they work together with one another and they become richer that way. When you work together, you become much richer. Guys, I use the analogy of a car park. I go to a car park, say Kenilworth Centre. The guys, so the car guards there, if I've given the money to another car guard, they share the money between themselves, they work together, they don't harass you, etc. But if I go to Muizenberg, there's a whole lot of oaks there and they're fighting with one another and they're arguing with one another, and I'm less likely to give them money. And the point is they're not working together to try get a better deal for everyone. And bottom line is, if you don't work together with raw materials, because the countries are generally weaker, they are less likely to get good prices. So yeah, but they are generally poor in the first place. So the world is structured rather unfairly. Okay. Question 4, explain what economic growth means for a country. Guys, so what did we say our economic growth measures were, guys? So we said it is the increase of the capacity of a country's economy to produce goods and services. So our GDP, gross domestic product, is a key indicator of economic growth. What you mentioned now, for instance, that the GDP is shrunk with 7% this year. That means we have 93% we will have at the end of this year 93% of the business that we had at the end of 2019. That's a huge problem, guys. Why? Because the less business you have, the less people that are employed. So the idea here would be that you want your GDP to grow, because that means there's more money available within the economy, more people are getting employed, who are again spending more money, etc., which leads to more people being employed, and it makes it attractive for business. So we spoke about China, which has got one of the highest GDPs or GDP growth per capita in the world. And basically, more and more people in China are getting employed because of their policies, opening business, etc. And it's become one of the production hubs of the world. So economic growth, guys, basically indicates how much a country's economy is growing. So what's the growth in the production of goods and services, which relates to the wealth of the country. So the greater the economic growth, the more desirable a country is for business, because it means there's more money around, more people spending money, etc. Okay, the concept of inflation, both key measures and how this would impact on Virgin business, any business. Sorry, I don't know why I put Virgin in there. I corrected the one slide show and didn't correct it. But on a business, okay. Okay, so what is inflation, guys? It's the general increase in the price of goods and services over time. So if we look at inflation, guys, last year versus this year, how much does a loaf of bread cost this year versus how much it cost last year? And that is inflation. So let's just try a little experiment here. Bread price, inflation, South Africa. Let's just see what comes up. I should be able to. Okay, so I've got a slide here. Price adjusted for inflation, 2008 prices. So basically, guys, if you look at the price of bread here from South Africa, from 2008 to currently, or this is to 2015, that gives you an indication. So in 2008, the price of bread was being subsidized. So the government basically gave the bread producers money for each loaf of bread that they produced. Stopped subsidizing bread prices in 2008. There was a dramatic increase in the inflation of bread, but so bread prices have essentially gone up, and there's been quite a bit of variation. If you look at the adjusted price of bread, bread has been, so what they've done here is that they've looked at, has bread become more expensive in real terms? And yes, so in 2015, bread was dramatically more expensive than in 2008 when the government used to subsidize bread. So if we go back to our slide over there, why are you doing that? Okay. So it's a continuing increase in the prices of goods and services. They become more expensive in time. What's the three types of inflation, guys? Cost inflation, which is due to, so why does bread become more expensive? Because flour and yeast and whatever goes into bread, the government puts more tax on something, the price goes up. And if we import goods. For example, guys, let's use oil as an example. So if the oil price goes up, the government charges more tax on petrol and the exchange rate weakens, we land up paying more for petrol. Then built-in inflation is inflation agreements and wages. So my petrol station attendants, my guys working at the refinery, they get more wages. How are these wages paid for? Paid for you by you as a consumer, because it's included in the petrol price. So it pushes up the petrol price. But what pulls up the value of something if there's a shortage of a commodity? So during the lockdown, actually the price of oil deflated dramatically. They were selling it at a loss in many instances. However, now the economies are taking off again. There's a greater demand for oil. So there's a shortage. It pulls up the price. More demand, higher prices, but also the amount of money that's in circulation. So amount of money people spending, and then government spending also pulls up the price of goods because it increases demand. So push is related to the commodities or the components of a product. Pull is related to the desire, the market demand for a product, and built-in inflation is wages, etc., which is basically also a form of cost inflation because it increases the costs of your goods and services. Okay, so my two key measures are my consumer price index and my producer price index. So if we look at those two measures over there, May 2020, let's see what our consumer price index. Okay. I'm just trying to find a good table. So guys, what the consumer price index does. So, okay, here you go. This is a nice one. So our CPI compares the price of a basket of goods with same time last year. So take the basket of goods, guys, which is everything from basic groceries to cost of a car payment, insurance, you name it, and they look at the average increase. So if you had to take 2000 versus 2002, so they compare the difference in prices between the 2 years. So if you look over here, so in 2000, in the year 2000, the CPI was about 5.5% higher than in 1999. But if you look at 2008, when we had a very high inflation rate, the CPI was 11% higher than the previous year. So CPI compares this basket of goods. Let's see, CPI South Africa basket of goods. Let's just see if I can get an image for it. Here you go. So guys, for example, if we look at this table, this diagram over here, so clothing, footwear, restaurants, hotels, healthcare, alcoholic beverages, housing, water, electricity, transport, etc. So if this was our basket of goods, it would compare these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 different groups of goods 1 year on year. So say on average, let's say this group of goods cost 10,000 Rand in 2019, and 2020 it costs 10,500 Rand, which means we have a CPI of 5%. So it's gone up, and then Let's just see my PPI. I think it's going to work as well. Okay. But okay. So, nah. Okay. So my PPI compares the prices that manufacturers are getting for their goods, and it compares it year on year. And the point is, so if the factories are getting more money for their goods and services, it's good, indicates there's a demand for their goods and services. But if they're having to sell their goods and services at a discount, indicates there's a drop off in demand for goods and services, which means that the economy is not doing so well. Okay. And then what was the next question? Constant inflation. What is external debt and how does it impact on the economic activity of a country? So external debt is the money that the country has loaned in order to make up their budget deficit. In other words, the government has a budget, or Pravin has a budget that I can't remember what month does he bring it out, but so he's got the budget, and so much money goes to education, so much to police, so much to army, so much to healthcare, etc., etc. But where does he get the money from? From tax. But if we don't collect enough tax, we have what's called a budget deficit, and we need to loan the money from someone. So, guys, let's say we've got a 1 billion rand budget deficit. So that's $1,000 million. Sorry, 1 billion rand. Let's say we've got $1 billion budget deficit. Let's say, sorry, I'm talking myself into a corner here. Let's just say we've got a 10,000 rand budget deficit. Okay, so the 1 year we lend the 10,000 rand. If it's 10 rand to the dollar, means we lend $1,000. But now the next year, the rand exchange rate has changed to 18 rand to the dollar, or 17 as it currently is. So that 10,000 rand is actually now 17,000 rand that we owe on that debt, because my exchange rates have changed, but I also have to pay interest on the debt. Remember, I loaned the money in dollars and I have to pay it back in dollars. So, but I buy the dollars. So I took the money in dollars, turned it into rand, but when I pay it back, I have to turn money into dollars again and pay for it in dollars. So bottom line, if a country has got too much external debt, it means that the tax money that you pay goes to servicing that debt. It's like I tell you, when you get out of university, don't get too clever for your own good and go get yourself all sorts of credit cards, because they offer them to you and lots of debt, and they say, would you like this account? Would you like that account? Great. It's not so easy to pay back. And what's the implication, guys? Basically, if a country's got too much external debt, it goes bankrupt. So it can no longer service its citizens. And that's not great for business. So it can't build roads, can't maintain its hospitals, its police force, whatever, because it's spending all the money on the external debt, the money that it owes. And then innovation, entrepreneurship, guys. What's the difference between innovation? Entrepreneurship is people who start businesses. Innovation is people who create new products, services, ideas, etc. So Elon Musk is an innovator because he's created Tesla cars, the SpaceX rockets, the batteries that last forever, etc. So it's new products, but the greater, and entrepreneurship is people starting businesses and making things happen for themselves. And the key difference, or the key issue over here, is the more innovation and entrepreneurship that you have within a country, the better a country does. So, for example, if Elon Musk had stayed in South Africa and started Tesla within South Africa, it would have created tens of thousands of jobs in South Africa, and would have also grown the economy, because Tesla's one of the best-selling vehicles in the world currently, etc. But unfortunately, he went to America, and America has benefited from both his innovation and his entrepreneurial orientation. Okay. Now, any more questions about the chapter specifically? Anyone? Anything? I'm not seeing my chapter. Sorry, I'm just trying to. Okay. Oh, it shouldn't be up there. Sorry. Now, apologies. That small sheet should not have been up there somewhere. Okay, guys. Now, what I want to say, the assignment. Let's talk about the assignment. It's great. Anyone, if you start a business, the bottom line is if you start a business for yourself, you're making things happen for yourself. Guys, if you're in a slight bit entrepreneurial, I've known people who've gone from working, the one guy I knew, I met, a friend of mine, he was working for the bank as a clerk. He was earning a very small salary. He opened his own travel agency at the time, and his turnover was about R1 million a month at one stage. So they were making 100,000 Rand a month plus money, guys. But the same token, people who buy and sell stuff, like for instance on Facebook Marketplace, you're making something happen for yourself. You're looking after yourself. You're not expecting someone else to provide for you. Yes, you can use graphs, guys. Pointing assignments, I'm not going to penalize you about the length of the assignment, but I don't just want graphs copied into the assignment and you don't explain them. Without an explanation, a graph is worthless. You don't expect the reader to analyze the graph for you. So you must analyze the information from the graph. Okay, so how supportive? That's a good point. At the moment, the point at the moment is the question that you say the economy is supportive. Bottom line is how much money do people have to spend? And our economy isn't doing great at the moment. We've got high unemployment. We've got people who are nervous about spending money, people whose salaries have been cut back, etc. So the economy is not the most supportive, but still people survive within these economies. It's about, if you always look at the downside of why I can't do something, you'll never do it. So one must find a niche within the market and supply the market with something it needs. Not a legal option, but imagine how well off you would have been if you thought of buying cigarettes before the lockdown. I know everyone thought cigarettes, that the lockdown would be for 3 weeks, and now 100 and X days later, and my poor smokers still haven't had a smoke. But let's face it, guys, people who've buying and selling cigarettes, the government's turned them into criminals, but they are also entrepreneurial. So, but the same idea, the person who walks around Seaport and is selling chips and sweets and stuff has an entrepreneurial orientation. They're making something happen for themselves. They're not just like saying, oh, help me, etc., guys, because reality is the world doesn't owe you anything. Unfortunately, we pretty much need to look after ourselves. Okay, so guys, if we look at the second assignment, someone asked me now. So the first assignment, which I've written to you, most of them were okay. There were some problems in the first assignment. Okay, it's due Monday, 20 July. Okay, so on Blackboard, there's a link. There's also a SafeAssign link, guys, so don't just cut and paste information into the assignment. I can see it anyhow, but the point why I use the SafeAssign link is just to, I've got tangible proof, and you can submit and have a look at how much is in your own words, etc. Guys, it's not difficult to put stuff into your own words. The people who didn't do well in their assignment because those high safer science scores were pretty much cut and paste, did no effort to put stuff into their own words. So guys, it doesn't matter how many people you were in the group, you're analyzing the same country, but you're doing it independently, so you won't have the same information. So if I find an assignment that has got exactly the same information, then I must assume you've copied between you, and then everyone gets zero. Yeah, me on that. I'm not redoing the thing, guys, and I'm not doing resubmissions for this assignment. I did it for the first assignment because just to make things a bit fairer, etc. Those who would plug the course, not for. If you don't put the effort in here, guys, you are not going to be successful. So hear me on. If you look at it's the same question. You work for the First Energy Drink or for Energy Drink, a South African company. There should be. For First Energy Drink, a South African company that sells energy drinks, which is considering becoming a multinational company. They are considering opening branches in various countries, including whatever country you had for your assignment. You need to write a report where you analyze the financial environment of what, let's say we do Ireland today, the Republic of Ireland. Okay. The aim of the assignment is to apply the concepts that are covered in topic 5, chapter 4 in Business Studies 3. The key requirement is that you use theory. This is where assignments went wrong previously. People did not use theory. They did not first define the concepts, explain what the concept comprises, and then get information about the country and explain what that information meant. So, guys, so you need to introduce topic number 1. So where you need to explain, so provide a quote about the financial environment or something that states why the financial environment is important for a business. So number 1, introduce the topic. Number 2, explain what the aim of the assignment is, i.e., in this instance, to analyze the financial environment of whatever country. And number 3, you need to explain the process. So in order to do this, as assignment, don't use I and we, you don't use first persons in assignments. In order to do this assignment will first examine economic growth in the form of gross domestic product, purchasing power, exchange rates, interest rates, and so on. So you explain the process followed in the assignment. Then, as we've just, for example, I'll get you now the 8 concepts that you need to explain. A conclusion highlighting the most important factors regarding the financial environment and how this will influence your decision. So, guys, question number 1 is GDP. We've just looked at GDP. So, just say, for instance, guys, you got your textbooks. Let's go books dot Google. Let's just go to Google Books. And gross domestic product definition. Okay, so Google Books. I don't know, accounts. So let's go to Principal Economics 2008. You could do something more recently. Okay, so let's just go to you open the book, guys, and this is as if you are using the actual book. And it's got a whole section on there, what gross domestic comprises, guys. And it's on page 509 of the 511 of the book. So you read out what is gross domestic product, and you outline the theory for me. So it's actually reading the book. When you reference the book, you click on the book on the left-hand side there, pops you onto. You've got the book over there, Economics 5th edition, Gregory Mann months, and there's all the details that you need to reference the book, etc. Okay, so and then let's just look. So you got the one book, and let's say you want to go use two sources because you want to do well in your assignment. Yeah, let's just go to the basic book on economics. Same story. It actually takes you to the page in the book. So you've got no excuse for not being able to find information about your topic. Okay, so you go there, you explain what gross domestic product comprises. So your first section, guys, in your assignment, you're explaining what does GDP comprise. Okay. Then the second section. So let's say I said my country was Ireland. So Ireland, GDP 2014, 2015 to 2020. Let's see. Another World Bank figures is so it must 2020. If you look around, there's a Bank of Ireland site. I don't know what, guys. So I'm Ireland GDP. Let's take that out. Okay, so there you've got the history of Ireland's GDP, and it goes up to 2018. So do the last 5 years, you should be able to get 2019's GDP. So guys, the point is, you want to explain. So for example, so we say GDP in Ireland was $291 billion, went up to 300, and then up to $382 billion. The point is then, guys, so you report 5 years figures. Then what does this mean? So it means that Ireland's GDP has been growing. So you could also look at Ireland's GDP per capita versus the US, just for example. So you can compare it to another market, etc. Guys, so you need to do some research, but you basically want to know how the economy has been doing of the country. And actually, Ireland's GDP is, or the European Union's GDP is actually better than the United States GDP if you look over there. But the point is, okay, guys, for each section, one, explain the theory. Two, provide the details about the country. And number three, what does this mean? So have they got a healthy gross domestic product? Has it been growing? The same story. So if you, for the last 5 years, guys, for example, the exchange rate. So number one, explain what the exchange rate is and what it means. So it basically influences the cost of your imports. So if you explain your exchange rate, and then number two, work out the exchange rate or find the exchange rate for Ireland and Ireland's, which is the euro versus the rand and the US dollar for the last 5 years. So you can take it on the 30th of June for the last 5 years. And then what does this mean for doing business? So if the exchange rate, if the exchange rate, remember you're opening a business there, so you're going to be bringing the money back to South Africa. So actually, if the South African exchange rate has been weakening against that of the Irish, it will be good for you, but you will also likely import a lot of your raw materials, etc., in dollars. And if that's been getting weaker against the euro, then it again will make your goods more expensive. So, guys, three things: theory, information about the country, and then what does it mean for doing business in the country. Then, trying to remember. A conclusion where you highlight the most important factors regarding, so you take those 8 factors over there, and what, based on this, so what is the key things, what are the things that stand out, and would you recommend that they do business there based on these 8 factors? I think it would be a good idea. Pardon. I think it would be a good idea based on these 8 factors that you've covered over there. Would it be a good idea to do business in the country? Okay, guys, so your technical requirements, same, you can read it, but the rubric, guys. So you've got 2 things there, guys. Introduction, in terms of what you need to have. So it covers all key aspects. Introductory statements, explains the purpose of the assignment, outlines the steps followed in the assignments, and 9 to 10, a powerful one, no errors, really like the reader excited. Then for each concept, guys, you've got 5 marks for the theory, and then your application. So you need to provide data about the country for the other 5 marks and explain what this data means. So coming back to the question about putting tables in, etc., yes, you can, but you must explain the table or graph that you put in. Guys, I know I said 6 pages. If you run over the 6 pages, it doesn't matter too much. I'm not going to penalize you unless you've gone and paste information in. Again, I'm providing you with a SafeAssign link. You know what you've cut and pasted to sign. It's blatantly obvious the people who cut and paste information in. And then technical care, 10 marks for referencing, etc. Guys, it must be referenced. Again, you say, oh, guys, your referencing is shocking considering that you are 3rd year students. But you've got a whole lot of references or guides. Harvard reference, you've got the one on the CPUT site, and I think it's on there's this free Harvard referencing curator, and then there's various sites, the ultimate Harvard referencing guide, etc., that explains to you how to do your referencing, guys. You need to get your act together with this. It gives you examples of how things should be referenced, etc. So, guys, in text versus your bibliography, I want to see both of them with your assignments. Okay. Questions? So that's the bottom line about this. You're going to analyze your country that you were given the previous assignment. So you're going to do your independent research. And then you're going to come to a conclusion whether it would be a good idea based on the economic indicators in that country, whether you want to move to that country or not. There's no limitation on the SafeAssign things. I think I put 5 times in, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I think I put 5 times that you can submit beforehand. But bottom line is, download your SafeAssign report. Look at the things that are, because guys, where it is, the people who had high SafeAssign, it's literally like a whole paragraph that's copied or huge sentences, etc. Guys, also a point. This one, don't put in like an introduction that explains. That is not the heading. You should just have your heading is introduction. Point 2 heading is description of the financial environment of whatever, not cut and paste the assignment question into your assignment, guys. So put headings in that reflect what you are doing in the assignment. Fia, what was your question? Oh, yes, you can use graphs, but you must explain graphs and tables. Don't just cut and paste the things in. So it's critical, number one, that you provide. So, guys, the 3 steps are: you can ask, is the theory there? That's half your marks. Second, have you provided the information about the country? So for the past 5 years, about GDP or about interest rates or about exchange rates. And thirdly, have you explained what this means? That's critical, guys. So don't just plonk information in. You need to provide an explanation of what that information means. Okay. Any other questions? Anyone? Anything? Uh, No, you can use whatever style. I don't, as long as it gets information across, guys. It's not the graph that's going to get you the marks. It's because that's just cut and paste from the thing. The point is that you must have taken the information out the graph. So, for instance, let's say I said Ireland's GDP. Just let's say I'm going to want to Ireland GDP. So, guys, there's a GDP per capita of Ireland. So, you take that off. What does it say to you about Ireland? So, the GDP, so let's say you do from 2014 to 2018, that has been growing fairly significantly, and it was about $48,000. It grew to 60,000. 63, 66, 70,000. So it's been growing consistently over the last 5 years. So you need to, whereas Haiti, also, guys, you need to look at, for example, GDP. If we take the last one, Ireland's GDP stays around $70,000, which means people in Ireland are pretty rich. So Haiti, which is one of the poorest countries on earth, their GDP is $1,483 per person, which is almost nothing. In fact, at one stage they had a negative GDP. So the economy basically shrunk dramatically in 2010. I think they had a huge earthquake, etc., in Haiti. So they spent more money than they earned within the economy at all. Okay, so guys, important that you explain. So the keywords here are explain, 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 explain. Okay, I want to see your insight and understanding. Again, guys, Ireland real GDP. So great. So if you look over here, guys, I can't read this one properly. 2005. Okay, the real GDP of Ireland has actually been going up and down, gross domestic product. This is only up to 2012. So the point is that graph means nothing if you don't explain what the figures are in that graph and what it means in terms of how well the economy is doing. Okay, anything else? And guys, I want you to get going on this assignment. This week, so this is the last class for the semester until the next formal class we will have is in the week of 17 August, guys. So it's like a huge way. June, July, August is 6 weeks time, basically 5 weeks time, 6 weeks time is our next formal class. But guys, this week, next week, and the week after, all the classes that are scheduled are yes, you must reference your graphs. You must reference again. Look at Google how to reference online resources using Harvard. It's quite simple, guys. It's like you've got the information at your fingertips. It's there. But so the rest of this week, Wednesday is consultation, but Friday, 12:30 to 2 is again consultation periods. Guys, if for some or other reason I'm not in the room, just WhatsApp the class reps and tell him to send me a message. Sometimes it slips through the cracks. I'm focusing on other things. I'm marking piles of stuff at the moment. You can also email me and I will reply to your emails. Guys, I've been slower than I've intended, but for instance, I think, yeah, last Sunday night, I was doing piles of emails and replies, etc. So often I leave it to a point, but I've also got piles of marking that I'm trying to do for my 4th years, etc. So guys, if you've got an issue, email me, or you can meet me I'm also happy to do one-on-one meetings with Zoom. We've got a Zoom portal as well. That's fine. But you again need to reference where you got the information from, Anita. So the figures, where did you get them from? Because it's not your own figures. Well, I hope it's not. Anyhow. Okay. Okay, guys. But I am here, so in the next 2 classes this week will be consultation. As I say, for some reason, I'm not in the classroom, guys. Just get the class rep to drop me a message. Chances, guys, I sometimes forget to do things, etc. I shouldn't. I've put everything on my Outlook calendar now, but it still doesn't always work as planned. As I say, the days just seem to melt into one at the moment. I don't know what day of the week it is, or yeah, anyhow. Okay, guys, thank you very much. I appreciate you being here. Start working on the assignment next week. All 3 classes. We don't have classes next week, but consultation times in all 3 classes, or if you arrange a separate consultation with me, I'll also be happy to meet up with you. So I'm happy to explain things, etc. in class. So I'm more than happy to explain anything. If you're a bit stuck on information, don't know how to interpret it, etc., talk to me about it. I'm more than happy to help. Okay, thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate you being here.